The story begins high in the Swiss Alps, where an imposing minimalist luxury hotel named Le Sommet sits isolated among jagged, snow-covered peaks. But the sleek glass and beautiful wood architecture cannot completely erase the building's dark history. It was once a notorious, bleak sanatorium for tuberculosis patients. Elin Warner, a British detective on an enforced psychological leave from her job, arrives here with her boyfriend, Will. She has come to celebrate the engagement of her estranged brother, Isaac. Elin is already carrying a heavy emotional burden. She is haunted by a botched case from her past and the unresolved childhood tragedy of her younger brother's drowning. From the moment she steps inside the hotel, the sterile, cold atmosphere triggers her anxiety. The tension escalates during the engagement dinner. Laure, Isaac's fiancée and an employee of the hotel, appears deeply unsettled, dropping subtle hints that something is wrong with the building's recent renovation. The next morning, Laure vanishes without a trace. Her phone, keys, and winter gear are left behind in her room. As Elin reluctantly begins to look into the disappearance, a ferocious, historic blizzard hits the mountain. The funicular railway breaks down, roads are blocked, and a massive avalanche warning forces the hotel into an emergency lockdown. The beautiful getaway instantly transforms into a high-altitude cage, trapping the guests and staff inside a white void. Elin's detective instincts clash with her personal panic. Isaac seems defensive and unhelpful, raising her suspicions, while the hotel's developer, a cold and ambitious man, tries to downplay the situation to avoid bad press. The building itself feels alive, with the wind howling through the old ventilation shafts like the ghosts of the long-dead patients. Elin discovers that Laure was researching the history of the sanatorium before she disappeared, specifically looking into the suspicious deaths of several young women decades ago. The first part concludes with a horrifying discovery that shatters any hope of a simple missing person case. While searching the hotel's lower levels, the original, unrenovated concrete corridors of the asylum, a body is found frozen in the snow just outside the glass patio. It's not Laure. It's one of the hotel's top managers, her body meticulously staged, her face covered by an antique, rusted medical oxygen mask. The realization hits Elin like an icy blast. There is a predator inside Le Sommet. The storm has locked the doors, and the hunt has officially begun. The discovery of the manager's body plunges Le Sommet into a state of absolute terror. With the Swiss police unable to reach the mountain due to the ongoing blizzard and treacherous avalanche risks, Elin is forced to take official charge of the crime scene. The isolation is now total. The power grid flickers, leaving the minimalist glass hotel drowning in long, sharp shadows. As Elin examines the corpse, she notices a chilling, methodical precision. The killer didn't just murder the victim. They staged her body with historical medical equipment from the old sanatorium, turning the crime into a theatrical performance. It's a message written in ice and blood. The psychological pressure cooker starts to affect everyone. Guests lock themselves in their rooms, while the remaining hotel staff split into factions, looking at each other with growing suspicion. Elin's own mind becomes her enemy. The lack of sleep and the eerie, echoing silence of the old asylum corridors trigger severe flashbacks to her failed case in England. Her relationship with her boyfriend, Will, begins to strain under the weight of her paranoia. she starts to question everyone, including her own brother, Isaac. Why does he seem so strangely indifferent to his fiancée's disappearance? What secrets are he and Laure keeping from the rest of the family? As Elin digs deeper into Laure's missing files, she uncovers the dark underbelly of the hotel's past. The old sanatorium wasn't just a place of healing. It was a site of systemic abuse and illegal medical experiments conducted on vulnerable female patients. The modern luxury renovation was built literally on top of a mass grave of secrets. Elin realizes that the killer isn't choosing victims at random. They are targeting individuals who are directly connected to the hotel's redevelopment or its historic cover-ups. The past is clawing its way to the surface, demanding vengeance. Act 2 reaches a frantic, breathless climax when a second attack occurs. Right in the middle of a security meeting, the hotel's main architect is found dead in the indoor pool area, his throat cut, his wrists bound with old medical restraints. The killer is moving with terrifying speed, navigating the building's hidden staff tunnels and old sanatorium ventilation shafts with ease. Elin realizes that the predator isn't just trapped inside with them. The predator owns this building. The act ends as a massive roar shakes the mountain. A secondary avalanche strikes, knocking out the emergency generators and plunging Le Sommet into pitch-black, freezing darkness. The darkness inside Le Sommet is absolute, broken only by the thin, jittery beams of flashlights. Armed with a master key and her police instincts, Elin leaves the luxury suites behind and descends into the sub-basements, the abandoned, decaying heart of the original 1920s sanatorium. Here the air is thick with dust, mold, and the metallic tang of old pipes. As she explores the forgotten wings, she finds old patient records, glass syringes, and operating theaters that were never cleared out. It becomes clear that the hotel's sleek, modern design was just a thin coat of paint meant to bury a legacy of corporate greed and medical torture. The investigation takes a deeply personal and disturbing turn. Elin discovers a link between the historical victims of the sanatorium and the current targets. The women who suffered here decades ago were silenced by a powerful syndicate of local families who funded the asylum. Shockingly, the names in the old ledgers match the families of the hotel's current investors, including suspects right under the hotel's roof. Even more terrifying, Elin finds clues that suggest Laure, the missing fiancée, didn't just stumble onto this information by accident. She was intentionally looking for leverage, using the hotel's dark history for her own hidden agenda. As the storm continues to batter the glass walls upstairs, the psychological warfare reaches a boiling point. Elin receives a series of untraceable, cryptic text messages on her satellite phone, mocking her past mistakes and threatening Will's life if she doesn't stop digging. The killer is watching her every move through the hotel's security cameras, which are still operating on a separate backup loop. Paranoia turns the guests into a feral mob. Accusation follows accusation, and a physical brawl breaks out in the main lobby as food and heating supplies begin to run low. Act 3 reaches its darkest peak when Elin tracks a faint noise to the old hydrotherapy department. Inside a rusted, zinc-lined treatment tub, she finds Laure. She is alive, but barely, heavily drugged and bound. Before Elin can untie her, a shadow moves in the darkness behind her. The killer, wearing the terrifying bug-eyed vintage gas mask, strikes from the gloom. Elin fights back frantically, but she is overpowered. As she slips into unconsciousness from a blow to the head, the killer whispers a phrase that chills her to the bone. A phrase that only her brother Isaac could possibly know. Elin wakes up in the freezing darkness, her head throbbing. Laure is gone again, dragged deeper into the labyrinth by the killer. Dragging herself up, Elin realizes she can no longer trust anyone, not even her own brother, Isaac. Armed with a heavy metal flashlight, she follows a trail of wet footprints leading toward the hotel's old boiler room. The storm outside reaches a deafening crescendo, and the glass walls of the upper floors begin to crack under the weight of the snow. The mountain is collapsing, and time has officially run out. In the sub-basement, Elin finally corners the figure in the gas mask. Holding a knife to a terrified Laure, the killer slowly removes the rusted mask, revealing a shocking face. It is Cecile, the hotel's seemingly quiet and helpful receptionist. Cecile's motive is a devastating tale of historical vengeance. She is the granddaughter of one of the young women who was experimented on and murdered in the old sanatorium. The investors, the manager, and the architect she killed weren't random choices. They were the direct descendants of the corrupt doctors who covered up the crimes. Cecile wanted to destroy the luxury hotel because it was built as a monument of disrespect over her family's graveyard. But the final, most brutal twist belongs to Elin's own family. Cecile reveals that she didn't kidnap Laure just for revenge against the hotel. Laure had discovered a dark secret about Isaac and Elin's past. Decades ago, when Elin's younger brother Sam drowned, it wasn't a tragic accident. Isaac, driven by childhood jealousy, had pushed Sam into the water. Isaac had spent his entire adult life running from the truth, and he had come to this isolated hotel specifically to buy Laure's silence. The phrase the killer whispered to Elin in the dark was a quote from Isaac's secret diary. A desperate, vicious struggle breaks out in the flooded boiler room as a massive avalanche finally slams into the side of Le Sommet, shattering the glass structures above and sending thousands of tons of snow pouring into the lower levels. Working together with a last-minute burst of adrenaline, Elin manages to disarm Cecile and pull Laure to safety just as the concrete walls cave in. Cecile is buried beneath the freezing rubble of the building she sought to destroy. As the rescue helicopters finally pierce through the clearing storm the next morning, Elin watches her brother Isaac being led away in handcuffs. The sanatorium has finally given up its dead, and Elin steps into the cold morning sun, broken but finally free from the shadows of her past.